So
All
yeah,
right.
the fall season is officially upon us here. That's why I've got this vest on. It's dropping below 40 degrees at night now. The leaves are changing colors and falling into my yard. So yeah,
Lucky.
the fall. Yeah, I know. Yep. So yeah, I'll be spending the next 2 months basically raking leaves in my yard. That's where you can find me.
That's your training plan for the next quarter, huh?
Yeah, exactly. All right, great. Well, we're at about 2 minutes after, so I guess why don't we go ahead and get started here, so that we can kind of kick this roundtable discussion off. So, first off, thank you everybody for being here and for joining us for this digital event that we are hosting with our partner DealHub, called Surviving versus Thriving: How to Rev Up Your RevOps Team for Success in 2023. Because as we all know, calendar quarter end, Q3 is a couple days away. Q4 is almost here, and before you know it, 2023 is going to be upon us. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get into the panel discussion. This event will be recorded, and we will be putting this video up on our website in a couple of weeks. However, we will probably be sharing a more raw version of the video recording with all registrants a couple of days following this actual event, and we'll obviously share it on LinkedIn, Twitter, in our newsletter. It's meant to be an interactive event, so as you can see, we've got the chat window open on the right. Dylan and Aaron from the RevOps Co-op team are going to be helping to manage the chat window. So drop your questions in there, drop your thoughts, drop your feedback in there, please. All questions will be answered either during the event or after the event. Let's have a good time. Be respectful of kind of everyone here. And we do have a Slack group with RevOps Co-op, so everyone is always welcome to continue the conversation there. And I will share a little bit more on RevOps Co-op as we kind of get started here. So again, thank you all for being here on this Thursday. I'm not even going to say morning, afternoon, or evening, because I see we've probably got all of those time zones represented. And so to get things kicked off, I wanted to introduce myself and the incredible panel that we have here. So I'm Matt, the CEO and co-founder of RevOps Co-op. RevOps Co-op is a community of 6,000 plus folks across 44 different countries who are all passionate about revenue operations. And we are hosting this panel discussion today with our partner DealHub. And we are going to be talking about 2023 planning. And so to introduce my fellow panelists, I first want to just go kind of around the horn. We've got Saul Garcia, who is the VP of Revenue Operations at Health Recovery Solutions. We have Bruce Harris, the Director of Finance Applications at Torchy's Tacos. And we have Eyal Orgil, who is the CRO and Co-Founder of DealHub. And so before we get started and I start peppering you all with some questions, Eyal, I have, I guess, two requests of you. The first one, give us a quick overview on DealHub. And for me, being a fellow founder, I always love hearing about origin stories and why you guys decided to start this company. So tell us how things got started and what you guys do.
Fantastic. And first, I want to say also hello to fellow Canadians, even though I'm not based in Canada anymore. So I see some great folks coming in from Canada all over the place, out west and in central area where I used to live. So that's great to see. So yeah, my name's Eyal Orgil. I'm one of the founders of DealHub. What DealHub is a CPQ and contract management solution, which is kind of different than a lot of other solutions out there that are just CPQs or just contract management solutions. What we did is looked at the situation and said people want to be able to build out quotes, and part of building out a quote is also building out a contract that goes with that. So that was one of the aspects of how we looked at what people are looking for today. They're trying to consolidate the solutions. Now, along the way, when we built the CPQ, we also took some different looks at how CPQ is built. And we actually looked at a sales and an operations first point of view. And let me explain what that means. From a sales point of view, we wanted to build a solution that salespeople actually like. I'm a salesperson myself. I hate when I get new tools all the time. So we wanted something that salespeople are going to like. They're going to want to use it. When they get value, the rest of the organization gets value. So some of the ways that we do our guided selling through what we call a playbook really makes an intuitive process for the salespeople to work through. From an operations point of view, what we decided to do as well is make a configured solution and not something that you have to come in and code. Everybody hates the dreaded software application that you have to come in, spend 6, 9, 12 months to build out. And by that time, it's 6, 9, 12 months old from what you wanted it originally. So we came out with a solution that's configured, makes it very quick to implement, just weeks to implement. It's also easy to maintain, oftentimes minutes or hours to go and make changes. So it's really a tool that keeps pace with what changes are happening in the business world. And that was really what the origin was about, was to try to make something different, not to just go make another widget like someone else's widget. We wanted to make a CPU that was really different, that really addressed the point of view of the operations people, the salespeople, and even through some other unique capabilities we have with sharing content today in a web format, what we call a deal room, looking at the interaction between the sales and the customers and providing a new kind of buyer engagement. So we really wanted to make a different kind of impact on the industry, different way to go about working. And that was sort of the origin of what it came about. We've been at it now for about 8, 9 years, and it's just been an incredible ride. It's great to see the success that we're having, and just continue to be excited about this industry.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks for that, Eyal. And then I have another question for you. I guess this one's completely unrelated to B2B SaaS or CPQ. My question is actually, what's your favorite M&M? Because mine is the peanut butter M&M, and like I will hands down like die on that hill that is the best out there. And so I always ask other folks what their favorite is as well. You a peanut butter guy? Peanut?
I think I'm more for the peanut. Peanuts. It's I love peanut butter with jam, but when it comes to M&Ms, peanuts are the way to go.
All right, I support that. Better than saying you don't have a favorite M&M. So
no, I do.
All right, that's good. All right, so I guess my first question for the panel is, like I said, we're now almost 3/4 of the way done with the calendar year 2022. For those folks that are on calendar year end, almost the end of Q3, Q4 is about to begin. And that means 2023 planning is probably in full swing. So I don't know about you all, but for me, Q3, Q4 is certainly looking different now that we're here versus what we kind of expected, or at least what I expected this year to look like. If you think back to Q3, Q4 of last year, the market was hot, the economy was great, venture funding was fantastic. It seemed like everything was going really, really well. So I guess, Eyal, I'm curious, based on where you and the leadership team at DealHub thought that, things might pan out for this year, and now that we're actually here, what are some things that maybe surprised you about 2022, the plan you had put together, and how did you, kind of adjust, maybe iterate throughout this year as you, kind of came to terms with, what you were actually faced with?
It's kind of interesting what happened in 2022 was take us back 2 years ago when we got hit with COVID, and all of a sudden it was people shaking their heads for a couple months. What's going on over here? Things were changing all of a sudden very quickly from the plans that we had planned for the rest of the year, and things were taking a twist. I think we've seen it, from our point of view, at least from DealHub's point of view, things haven't changed too much. We have seen a little more belt tightening. We've seen some people talk about let's hold off a little bit on some of our projects. On the other hand, we've also seen that organizations are seeing that now is the time that you have to get more efficient with your sales team. Now is the time that you have to look at what solutions you're using, put your money in the right place, get the efficiency of the sales team up, get the oversight on how people are selling and quoting and approval processes and all that. So while we have seen some organizations take a little bit of a step back, it really hasn't been the majority. For the most part, things didn't change too much. And if anything, we're only seeing in the last month as they're coming, I guess, into the period now where they're looking at their budgets and they're starting to think about it a little bit. But really, it hasn't been a big effect. I think there still is a lot of uncertainty what's going to happen. I think going into 2023, people are still a little bit uncertain. But from what we've seen, and I must say, luckily from our point of view, we've seen that people are still looking at the right solutions to put the right priorities on the right solutions. And the CPQ, the contract management area, tends to be one that they are looking at seriously, saying this is one that can help our organization. So from that aspect, I think it's been really good. It'd be interesting to hear some of the other panelists, what they've got as well from their point of view as being the customer side of things. I think from the vendor side of things, we've really seen organizations still looking at those solutions saying, yes, we do need those. And it is the right time to go and implement them.
Yeah, Bruce, I saw you nodding your head a bunch. I'd be curious on your perspective, especially, being at Torchy's consumer, kind of product. And then Saul, after Bruce, obviously like very different perspective for you being VP of RevOps at a healthcare, health tech related company. So, Bruce, what about you? Where do you see things kind of heading into this year, and what changes did you make to planning and execution, kind of as you went along?
Yeah, so I will definitely second what Eyal said. So, and I lived it. So pre-COVID, yes, I'm in the business applications area. It's anywhere from quoting to CRM to integrations to ERP to analytical output, like all that area. And before COVID, companies were like, yeah, we that's kind of important, but we usually threw that into the IT area, and it's kind of like, hey, just as long as the stuff doesn't break, as long as it runs, we're kind of good. There wasn't really much focus on business applications and the processes behind them for some reason. I don't know why. So, and an example too, like if I was looking for another position out there somewhere, sometimes it'd take 3-4 months just to get somebody to reply like, hey, yeah, we're kind of hiring on that. COVID, a complete 180. So with COVID, with everybody working remotely, everybody all of a sudden was like, oh my goodness, if people aren't in the office every day and people are remote, the companies just for some reason started realizing business applications run their whole company. Like that's what runs your company. If those don't run, your company doesn't run. And I don't know why it took so long. And how that was even reflected was, once again, I say I went like 3 or 4 months and I wouldn't get a single reply. Flip to, there was one day I had interviews with 3 different companies that got 2 job offers in the same day. Like it was that 180. So companies are now realizing, wow, we need these business applications. These business applications run our company. They need to run well. They need to run better because everybody's remote. Nobody's not in the same room but trying to keep something working. We need a dedicated business applications person to run those. And then ultimately, as is most important, it's all about revenue and revenue velocity. That's where it all starts. And if you don't have that, you're not going to survive. And getting that quoting process, especially with DealHub, that guided quoting, get those predictable results is now so incredibly important that the focus is 100% on that now for most companies. So yeah, it is absolutely changed massively.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And Saul, what about you? 2022 kind of plan maybe versus reality on the healthcare technology side.
Yeah, I think healthcare technology, the industry as a whole really evolved, I think, since COVID. We provide remote patient monitoring solutions to patients, but we sell directly to hospitals, home health, etc. That obviously became quite crucial during a time where you didn't want patients to come into the hospital, right? So for us, it was a bit overwhelming in terms of kind of the need that occurred across the country. What became really interesting for us is going into 2022, we certainly had a bit of a plan in terms of how we thought it would evolve. As we've sort of seen in 2022, it's come back to normality to a certain degree. And so I think when we're looking ahead for 2023, although RPM and telehealth is still, I think now the industry as a whole has changed. Industries are a bit more open to RPM and telehealth. We certainly expect some amount of normality to go back, maybe not all the way in terms of how it was in 2019, early 2020, but I think we certainly expect to a certain degree for that to happen.
Yeah, I remember when COVID kind of first rolled around, right, and everyone was kind of freaking out. The sky is falling, and then guess what? Turns out like things actually went really, really well. And now everyone's like, oh, now that we're kind of on the backswing of that, like, should we, expect things to like the opposite to happen? Will things continue to be good? Are they somewhere in the middle? And obviously, as you try to plan, especially look at next year, that kind of historical, I guess those historical data points, how much kind of relevance or weight can you place on them, right? It just becomes
Exactly.
really, really, really challenging. So actually on that note, when it comes to 2023, which is now, a little over 3 months away, I guess what are, curious to hear all of your perspectives on any trends that you see for the new year, and maybe more specifically, like what's the one thing that is maybe on your mind, and if anything keeps you up at night, like is there one thing that goes to the top of that list that that does keep you up at night. Eyal, like, what do you think? Like, what are you guys looking at when it comes to next year, and maybe that thing that keeps you wondering whether or not it's going to hold true?
Well, actually, I have two hats over here because on one hat, I'm the CRO, and I got a sales team underneath me. And over the last year and a half, we've more than doubled the team. So I'm always looking at that, and we're continuing to grow the team. So there's always that aspect of how we give them tools. Luckily, I've got a great CPQ solution, the contract management tool, that I can give them and make sure that they're using it. Now, as my team is growing, we start looking at that, exactly those areas that are important, the efficiency of it, making sure that quotes are, as a small team, it's great, let the salespeople do what they want. But as they get larger, even as a CPQ, vendor, we have to make sure we're using our tool, we're using it right, we're providing the right approval processes in place, giving the right efficiency for the sales team to do things very quickly, still not slowing them down as we grow. So that's a lot of what we think about in terms of how do we even tweak our CPQ that we continuously, it's what's great about DealHub, is that it lets you make those changes. So we're changing it as we're growing. So those are things that we think about, as we move forward. In terms of trends that I see from the customers that we talk to, so we do see a lot more people looking at approval workflows. We start seeing people looking at how do they make things more efficient. It's one of the things that continues, but they're still continuing to look at that in different ways. We see different parts of the organization involved in that. I think the RevOps has more clients nowadays, where it used to just be the salespeople. We see all of a sudden there's groups like Deal Desk and other groups within the organization, and the managers that are doing the approval, they're really having to look at them, the way they're operating and all that. So that efficiency is really across the board, not just the salespeople in different ways. So the approval process is a big area. We've seen a lot of people really interested now in our deal room that I mentioned earlier, the ability to share content in the web format. And that's a lot because of the way we were talking earlier, people started working remotely now. So we're sending content out to different people. You have to make sure they're all getting the same information, putting that in one easy aspect. It's not that your customer gathers in a room nowadays to make their management decisions. They're all sitting in their bedrooms or in their living rooms at home. They're never together and all that. You've got to make sure you're getting the right content. So we're really seeing the trend of having that virtual sort of workspace moving into the quoting area as well, which has been great because that's the solution. We've had it out there for a number of years. It's really coming to fruition now to see the value out of that. So that's what, a great trend that we're seeing, and we've got the solution right there for them.
Yeah. And that, totally resonates with me. I remember before RevOps Co-op, when I was leading, business operations and revenue operations at Ally.io, I was the deal desk team, right? I was the process. I was the one who was sending out the DocuSigns and approving all the pricing and everything like that. And you can imagine how painful that got as we added more and more reps, and how much I dreaded all of a sudden the last couple of days of the month or the quarter, because I knew that I was just going to have an influx of things to do. And then talk about just the manual effort to kind of manage that whole process was overwhelming. And anytime you got something manual, mistakes can be made. And like you said, time is money and efficiency is key, especially given the current market dynamics. Saul, I think you're in maybe a similar type of position on the RevOps side of health recovery solutions in terms of kind of team size and things like that. I guess what's on your mind as 2023 is coming up, and kind of you look at maybe the things that worry you.
What worries me is planning for 2023. That keeps me up at night. I think we can all probably agree on that. I think it's been said multiple times, and that's efficiency. COVID really, I think, challenged all of us to be more efficient as teams started to reduce, and more was being asked of RevOps to do the same amount with less. Efficiency was probably our number one thing, right? And so I think that continues on. So for us, I think it's being realistic about our 2023 plans, being data driven but not data reliant. There's all the data in the world in 2019 would have not predicted perhaps what happened in 2020, right? So there's always going to be surprises. We can't let perfection be the enemy of good enough. But ultimately, for us, it's just being really data driven, trying to do our best to plan as well as we can. Take not just the data that proves this is how we're a bottoms up and a top down build that's going to say this is where we end up. Let's look at where we failed as well. Look at how we can fail forward. And so those are the things I think for me in 2023. It's how can we be efficient as an organization, and then how can RevOps as well be efficient and continue to provide the service that we need to provide for the team.
Yeah. So do more with less, I heard. And I guess on that note, what would be if those are the things that maybe worry you or kind of keep you up at night? I mean, what would be your big win in 2023? If there was one thing that you could accomplish next year as a RevOps team at HRS, what would that be?
I think for us, a big win would probably be probably improve our performance and efficiency both up market and down market. For us, we started a mid-market team this year, and while we've seen some success, I don't think we've seen the success across all throughout the entire team. And so I think that's something, and it's also on RevOps for us to be perhaps provide a better profile for that team. I think right now the net is cast a little too wide, and so I think based on what we've learned and the data that we have, I think we can narrow down that focus. The idea of that is to have a quicker sales cycle, increase the number of new logos that we're bringing in, and to be a market fit for the lower end of the market. Additionally, I think for us, we've also seen that our ASP on our enterprise team has gone up significantly. Our sales cycle has reduced, and we've also seen that as the deal size increases, our win rate increases exponentially. So we want that to not be an anomaly. We want that to be a bit of a predictable expectation rather than being surprised by those numbers. So I think for us, it's been getting the successes that within those teams and spreading that success throughout the rest of the sales team for us. And I think we in sales ops and revenue operations can help by looking at the data and perhaps again understanding where we perform well, and instead of casting a wider net, maybe narrowing that down a little bit so that we can bring in more pipeline with the specific profile that works best for us.
Yeah. And Bruce, how does that compare? Saul's talking about selling software to help with remote patient monitoring, and you're talking about selling tacos. But how does that compare? Like, is there overlap there, similarities, or not?
There are some. I mean, we are, like a lot of people are facing, we're increasing cost of goods sold with inflation. So along with all of that, we've had to do price increases. You want to make sure your price increases, don't drive away too many customers. Luckily, we're starting to see a little easing on the COGS increase. We're starting to see a little downturn, a little actually decrease in pricing, which is good. But all that, with the recession, and everybody's screaming recession, we don't know what's going to happen. They're having to raise prices, the double impact of raising prices and inflation plus recession, that's kind of tough. So we're just planning. It's once again, it is all about, like they spoke to, it's all about efficiency, predictability, consistency, being able to get the quoting process, capturing that revenue as quickly as possible, all about that revenue velocity and how quickly you can capture it. It's about ramping up reps very quickly, not wasting any time so they can capture revenue as quickly as possible. And that guided quoting is so important, because that guided quoting, you can create that playbook and you go, here you go, rep, you take that out. Now you just start quoting. You don't have to take 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months to try and learn hundreds of different products, which there are infinite combinations. So it's all about that. And then also very important on that is you got the front end. But on the back end, you have the output of all that, and it's the data and analytics. And now being able to take all of that input of what is going on and being able to create an output that you can run analytics against to create a feedback loop to constantly fine tune that quoting process to capture that revenue. And to me, that's the other really big half of it, is the input and the output, but focus on that input of fine-tuning that and the output of that data and analytics to be able to analyze what is going on from a quoting process, to be able to get that feedback loop, to be able to constantly fine-tune. So you're just constantly getting better and better.
Yeah. I think, the execution side and maybe comparing back the plan and getting granular in terms of why we're in line, above, below plan can, tease out those things that you mentioned, right? Like maybe it comes down to the fact that your product catalog is ginormous, and you have no way to easily enable your reps to understand that. And if you did, they could go out, they could sell faster, sell more. You'd get dollars, cash, revenue in the door quicker. Makes tons of sense. And actually, I guess, Bruce, you were talking before about kind of COVID and how, at least for someone like you on the kind of the business systems, business technology application side of the world, how I'll say the job market, kind of changed, right? Quickly, people were realizing how much value there was on that. I guess talk a little bit about, I'm curious, like within the broader RevOps or BizOps team at Torchy's, kind of where does the business application, finance application team sit? And for the folks on the call that maybe have a revenue operations team that they're responsible for, and part of their planning process is, where do I hire? Who do I hire? What are the things that they should be good at? Where does someone like a systems person, kind of fit? And what are some things that maybe would indicate to a RevOps leader that they should hire someone dedicated to supporting the revenue applications that they have?
Yeah, no, great question, and I'm very opinionated on this because I'm very adamant that the business applications belongs in the CFO, the financial realm. Because I fought the battle at HomeAway, it was in that realm and it worked really well. And they moved us over to IT, and then it rapidly broke down. And IT, their focus is on supporting the organization, computers, firewalls, things like that, developing the company's own software. They aren't business applications, business processes that run the company. They don't understand the accounting part. They don't understand the sales part. And most of the time they don't even want that stuff. So what I see, if I see an org and I see that all this stuff is over in IT, generally it's probably going to struggle because that's not what IT likes to focus on. The CFO, they're all about that revenue. They're all about grabbing that revenue, getting the revenue right, getting it predictable, getting it consistent, getting it fast. So that's why it works very, very well, because I've done this now many times. I flipped it from IT to CFO, and now in the last few positions, I'm in the CFO's department. It works incredibly, incredibly well that way. So that said, you need people, you need systems that the modern technology, these systems are moving towards configurable away from code. So like the DealHubs, the demos, things like that, it's more configurable software. Writing thousands of lines of code, I've been in departments like that just doesn't scale in reality. You need that configuration so you don't have to hire a technical team. But within that team, you need people who know processes. You need people who know selling theory, people who need pricing theory, people who know the end-to-end processes, stuff like that aren't just siloed, because it does have an impact. It has an impact from the product all the way to the quote, to the opportunity, all the way to revenue recognition. And that's why I've seen it struggle too, is when they're very siloed. They're like, hey, we're just selling stuff. Well, finance goes like, well, great, you're selling stuff. We have rev rec problems. If you're a public company, that's a really big problem. So people who understand the process end to end, systems that are configurable, so those people don't need a degree in computer science. They can configure those systems. They can deploy them rapidly, test them rapidly, deploy them rapidly. That is very important. And then to me, once again, in that CFO, that financial area, because everything has that financial impact. So that's where I've seen it work really, really well. And I've done it so many times. It's very predictable, good results on that.
Yeah. I know firsthand how hard it can be to get engineering to help you with kind of business operations stuff when they also have things like product to build and go out and get. I guess, Saul, for you on the RevOps side, I'm curious, I guess tell us how the current RevOps team at HRS is structured, and then as it relates to 2023 planning, how are you looking at headcount and bringing people on, like where based on the current structure of your team and where those responsibilities are, how are you looking to maybe kind of fill those gaps, especially since a lot of what we've been talking about here is efficiency and doing more with less?
Yeah, absolutely. I think going in, so I've gone into 3 organizations as the first team of one, as we like to call it in RevOps, and then from there have built a team. This is my 3rd time. I think what I always start off is, what are my strengths and where are my weaknesses, and I sort of start to hire from there. I call myself a de facto Salesforce admin. I'm not a Salesforce admin. I dare not call myself one. So that's usually for me my first hire. And so from there, again, I look at what the organization needs. Perhaps the organization really needs marketing operations to start off with. That might be my third hire. If perhaps maybe that's not the initial need, maybe that's my fourth or fifth hire. So I really try to look at what are my areas of strengths and weaknesses, what the organization needs, and so forth. The way my current team is set up, we do have a revenue applications team. It's a team of two. We have a marketing operations manager, and then I have a revenue operations analyst as well. So that's the structure of my team. My revenue operations analyst sort of is sales operations and customer success operations. Yeah, that's the current structure of our team. When we're looking to grow, again, we're looking at where the organization is moving. We are potentially looking into our next hire would maybe something along the lines of sort of a deal desk slash order management sort of sales admin sort of a role. CPQ has really helped us and enabled us to be a lot more efficient. The guardrails it puts in has really helped us. But at the same time, we might need someone to help review some of this stuff before things close. So that's potentially something we're looking at. So yeah, I think we just kind of look at where the holes are and where we want to fill. It's been different at every org, so it's really important to not sort of just follow this like structure or this framework, and to really sort of adjust that as needed.
Yeah, I agree. No one size fits all approach, and I think my experience was similar to yours. Again, when I was at Ally, I was the RevOps team. Once I was able to hire some folks, like you, I was the de facto Salesforce admin, but I would never throw myself into a Salesforce admin conversation in my life. So the first person I hired actually wasn't a certified Salesforce admin, but was a systems person who could do all the Salesforce admin work along with all the other systems work that we needed. And then from there, as I hired, is just hired more into more, I'll say, kind of specific roles. So started broad, got kind of narrow as we went along. Eyal, I'm curious, so like, you've been around for a while, much bigger company, much bigger kind of RevOps team. You're the CRO, right? How, on the ops side, how are you all structured at DealHub today, and what are you looking to do on the RevOps hiring side as you look to the upcoming new year?
Well, first of all, on the ability to provide salespeople the tools that they need, we've got our own in-house team that helps us with implementing our own solutions. So actually, it helped us out on not needing the RevOps people to do that aspect of configuring the CPQ and the contract management side of things. So while we do have RevOps people to go and help with the day-to-day work that needs to be done and all the reporting and making sure things are efficient, we didn't need them to go and scale from that aspect, which also helped us a lot on having to then need Salesforce admins and things like that. Obviously, we use Salesforce as well as our CRM. So we didn't have to grow the RevOps team too large, again, just because the nature of the organization, that we know how to go and handle a lot of that efficiency already in-house. So it sort of saves us from that aspect. As we grow, though, we are looking to need more of that, because as the team grows, we do have to keep pace with a lot of different changes that are happening. So we do add that, looking at increasing the RevOps team. We see in some of the other teams as well, in the customer success with their operations team, the marketing and so forth, obviously increasing that, less in my area from what I deal with. But as a growing organization, we have to get more efficient in some of those areas as well. So we've been a little lucky that we haven't had to grow it too much, but definitely something that we're always looking at. And because we're analyzing our own tools all the time and looking at our own reporting and all that and seeing what's happening as well, so we can keep track of that through our team. So, I think we're maybe just a little bit different of a beast just because of the fact of, we're the experts in that field sort of thing. So we can sort of help ourselves.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And so, as I kind of look at revenue operations, kind of look at things across people, process, technology. We just talked about kind of the people side of that, how some RevOps teams might be structured, how people are maybe looking to hire as the new year comes about. Want to move on maybe to the technology side. Obviously a lot of the folks that we have on the panel here, CPQ experts. So, when it comes to CPQ, we've talked about 2022. We've talked about some of the things on maybe on the docket or, in our plans for 2023. I think the thing that I heard from everybody, whether it's themselves or from their customers, is all about efficiency, right? And making sure that there's ROI on basically everything that we do. You can no longer just kind of, throw kind of good money after bad. So I guess let's talk about maybe how CPQ can or CPQ solution can actually help accomplish some of those things that we may be set out to do in 2023, especially if efficiency is going to be, top of mind. Bruce, I don't know if you you maybe want to get us started on that. You've implemented CPQ a bunch. You're the business systems, finance applications person. You talked a lot about efficiency and kind of revenue efficiency. So as it relates to CPQ, what are some of the things that these folks should think about in terms of how it could actually be a solution to help them accomplish those things they want to in 2023 for the RevOps team?
Yeah, so having implemented, multiple CPQ systems going way back, so absolutely CPQ, and first and foremost, in my opinion, it needs to be a guided quoting, and you need a natively guided quoting tool, a tool that was developed with guided quoting as its foundation, like DealHub. I have amazing success with that because having worked in an organization with 500 products, having worked with an organization with 6,000 products and 40 product lines, I've proven multiple times that a sales rep trying to remember, because even with 500 products, there's infinite number of combinations, them trying to remember which products somebody needs out of infinite combinations, which is 500 products. They're focusing on thinking about the product. They're not focusing on selling. What that leads to too is, since they're infinite combinations, is revenue leakage. We proved out they weren't selling the right things. It was taking months upon months to ramp them up to try and learn the product mix. And even within, you'd send 10 reps out and they would get 10 different product mixes, meaning we're leaving revenue on the table. The last thing you want to do. So you need a consistent process, which is guided quoting. You need that playbook, whereas you just say, hey, guess what, rep, here's your playbook. You focus on selling, but here's your playbook, and we'll guarantee that 100 times out of 100, you'll get the right products at the right prices. So having implemented DealHub, at Assure, we went from a ramp up time. It was taking 12 to 14 months for reps to try and learn the product mix. Our most productive rep had been on the job for 6 weeks after we implemented, because you just focus on selling. We already got the playbook out for you. So you just follow the playbook and you get the pricing right. So you have consistent, rapid, predictable results. They could get that quote out in just a matter of minutes. They're finished the quote and they hit publish, and all of a sudden there's a microsite, and delivering that content to, having struggled with that, trying to develop custom content in Conga that reads from Salesforce and deliver it out to the end user. It didn't look good. It didn't make us look good. And having, once again, a content delivery tool at DealHub with that microsite, a living microsite, I have case studies, I have videos, I have the quote that looks really good. I got all kinds of content. I get content that's dynamically generated, so the rep doesn't have to think about it. I got content that the sales rep can kind of control because they may know it better. So getting that extra rich content out there and be able to see that behavior of what the prospect, are they looking at it? How often are they looking at it? It's all about that. It's that rapid, consistent results. It's making the company look good. It's a professional presentation, and getting those reps ramped up and making sure they're selling the right thing every single time as fast as possible. It is all about that.
Yeah. So, Eyal, if let's say I'm your RevOps counterpart, supporting your revenue organization, if you tell me that things like rep productivity, improving rep productivity are going to be one of our upcoming goals in Q4 next year, maybe increasing our ASP, is CPQ, I guess based on what Bruce said, implementing a CPQ solution could be a potential way to solve and tackle some of those problems. I guess one, is that right? And maybe two, what are some other things that that RevOps folks should consider as it relates to how CPQ can help them solve some things as they head into the new year?
Yeah, well, definitely Bruce was spot on a lot of those things, and all those things that he mentioned as what CPQ will help. So definitely the efficiency of the salespeople. We've had organizations that tell us it took days to put a quote together and they could do it in minutes. And that's not because the salespeople don't know what they're doing. It's just they have to go through all those different options. They have to go figure out what's the right thing. Whereas when you have the logic built into the CPQ that just says this product goes with this product, here's the other options, here's the upsell options that you can go in and provide as well, that just speeds up the time for the salesperson, making sure that they can get the right quote out. They don't have to go run to get assistance from other people. They can do it all themselves, and you put all that logic in place to put those guardrails of what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. So definitely the efficiency, and definitely improve the revenue, because you have those recommendations. Even what Bruce mentioned, the content. It's not just picking the right content, actually getting the right content recommended. In a previous hat that I wore many years ago in marketing, it was always salespeople coming up to me saying, what's the right content to put in that proposal so I can really have a killer proposal? And the first questions you start asking them is, okay, who are you selling to? What are you selling? Well, the CPQ knows all that information because it's read in information from the CRM, so it knows who you're selling to. It's helped build the configuration of the product that you need. So you're providing the right content to get a better chance of winning because you're putting the right information there in front of the customer. So that really helps your win rates as well because you've got the right proposal. It's the best proposal that can be out there. And as even Bruce mentioned, it's not people ramping up in 12 months. It's taking someone who just started with the company and within weeks they're being productive. I think it's a huge thing that people just don't look at is the amount of time that you're going to spend till that you get the maximum out of them. And you know, the way the market works sometimes after you've got them ramped up, they're going to spend another 6-12 months with you and then they're off to somewhere else. Why not get them up and ramped up right away? So I think you really touch on a lot of those points, the efficiency, the ability to sell more, the presentation of the company, the number of people that I speak to that tell me their proposals go out, it sounds like almost like on a napkin, you know, it's Excels, it's PowerPoints. I love the salespeople that take the logo of their company and stretch it a little bit because they think it looks a little bit better and they can do a better job than their marketing department. It's like, those are super important things. Organizations spend hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars on getting that branded look. And all of a sudden salespeople are doing their own thing. So even the way you look in front of your customers, and when you get a professional proposal compared to someone else who's giving a non-professional, you're really looking at it differently. It's a soft aspect, but it's a way that people look at you. So those are definitely areas that, you know, are important. I think one of the other things I'll focus on is business is constantly changing. You know, we always say it's you know, it seems like every time you talk to someone, yeah, business isn't faster. It's not that always business is faster, but business is always business. It's always changing. And you need your solutions to be able to adapt very quickly. And when you have the right CPQ with the right kind of guided process, it might be a 10-minute change that makes your solution so much better by going in there and adjusting it to the way that the salespeople are working or the way that the CEO or the CFO want to see the numbers or want to do the calculations or the pricing. So it's important to have that agility to really be able to go and adapt to changing business needs. You've got the right CPQ in place, you're able to do that, and you're not having a lot of disruption in the organization. That's huge as well. The disruption that causes when you have to go put new versions out there, change things all the time, the smoother you can make that for the salespeople, you know, that's super important as well. So that's probably some other aspects on top of, you know, a lot of the great things that Bruce was already talking about.
Yeah, it makes tons of sense. And Bruce, I know you've implemented CPQ a bunch of times. I'll say as a RevOps professional, I've actually never implemented a CPQ solution before, and I'm sure that I'm not alone. There's probably lots of folks out there who are in the same boat as me. So, you know, we talked a little bit about goals, objectives for 2023, rep productivity, increasing ASP, improving win rates, you know, better change management. If those are some of your goals, objectives, how a CPQ solution, you know, could potentially help you solve for or tackle some of those things. But for a RevOps leader like me, what are some of those things that maybe I should be experiencing or could be experiencing, right? Some day-to-day problems, week-to-week problems or challenges that I might be having where I should say, oh, you know, this is happening to me. CPQ is a way for me to solve that. I should look at a CPQ solution. Like, do I need a product catalog with 5,000 things in it in order to be like, oh, now things are complicated enough for me? Like, what are those things that a RevOps professional can look at to indicate that, you know, there might be a problem there that could be solved for?
Yeah. So it's the inconsistencies. It's the revenue leakage, which again, experiencing all of this. It is a delayed time to get the quote out. It's people quoting different things. It's confusion as to what we're selling. You know, all having lived all of that. Those are all things. And yes, that product catalog, but not only just the product catalog, but you need to right size the product catalog. And I've worked with systems where due to pricing limitations, I have to create the product multiple times, either due to durations or different currencies or different something else. And once again, that is inconsistent. That's a bloating of your product catalog. So a very, very powerful pricing engine. You want to be able to price to perfection ultimately. And a very, very powerful pricing engine is where it starts with that product catalog to be able to bundle, be able to price correctly. And I said the DealHub pricing engine, incredibly powerful as to be able to collapse your product catalog, because you can have questions and answers, that guided quoting that will lead you to the right price every time, and multiple pricing versions for one particular product. So having a very powerful pricing engine that allows you to price to perfection, getting that product catalog right so you don't have too many products, too few products, being able to bundle them and package them correctly. I mean, that is all where it starts. So I can't see any reason that you would not have a quoting tool. I've seen companies as little as 4 products struggle with quoting. And I've said, hey, look at this, and said, hey, you take a look at DealHub, and they converted to that. And even with 4 products, they were struggling. And when they converted, it completely changed everything. So you can think like, hey, I just got a couple products, I don't need it. But I've seen companies struggle with just literally 4 products without a good quoting tool to get the right quote out there. So to me, and I don't really see any cases where it's not needed. Because you once again, all those things we talked about of pricing to perfection, that revenue velocity, you want all of that. And when you have all of that, you can focus on the value add, you can focus on the output, to focus on the fine tuning, focus in on always making that quoting process better, instead of focusing on all the problems with your quoting process and having to review every deal and every quote. And is it right? And did we get it right? And did we put the right content on there? You don't have to focus about any of that. You can focus on the predictive, prescriptive side of what's going on and fine tuning. So that's why to me, in every case, it makes sense.
Yeah. And then, I mean, what you say makes sense to me. I remember again at Ally, I'd be reviewing deals where we had, maybe 5 reps and, essentially like three products, right? And, rep A might send an order form for approval that, is for the same size company with the same products as rep B. And all of a sudden they're priced differently. And they said like one person looked at like a standard price sheet from that was old and somehow hanging out on like a Confluence page somewhere. And like the other person was referencing the new one that they found in Slack. And like, and then you're like, well, we've already communicated this to the customer, so there's no going back. And right, that's just one example of what can happen at 1 month end with a team of 5. So yeah, I feel you. Yeah, Saul, I'm curious. Like, what are your thoughts on someone new to to CPQ? Things that might indicate there's a there for for evaluating a solution to help them solve some problems.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the biggest thing was in recent examples, I've seen companies have a go-to-market strategy that they thought they were actually going to market with, but then the reality was that things were being priced differently. There was inconsistent pricing, inconsistent packaging, and people actually had no idea. CPQ allows you to have a consistent go-to-market strategy with the guardrails in place. And so, when it comes time to planning, for example, we're planning for 2023, that your go-to-market strategy was consistent because of CPQ. I'll just give a really quick example. We were implementing a CPQ at a previous company. I was working with product, I was working with sales, and we were in a room and we were talking about how we were supposedly packaging our product. The product team had no idea that our sales team was selling the product for the last 3-4 years a way that they had never meant for it to be sold and bundled. And the majority of our deals were sold that way. And there was like this light bulb aha moment of, yes, we need this, and this is why. And that was just a really good example of, again, the strategy, everything that they had been doing over the past few years, they didn't realize that it was inconsistent based on how they had bundled it and packaged it together. CPQ allows you to just build those guardrails in and to go to market. So
yeah,
that would be my example.
Yeah, it makes sense. So we've got so everybody, we've got about 10 minutes left. So throw any questions that you have in the chat, and we will definitely make sure that we get to them. I know we heard a lot about kind of hiring before. I guess outside of one of the other questions here as it relates to 2023 is how are RevOps leaders, I guess, looking to allocate budget or investment, next year, especially as it compares, or as you think about market downturn or flat economy, or whatever variation of that you want to subscribe to. I guess, Saul, are you seeing maybe RevOps budgets, whether it's for you or any of your other RevOps peers or colleagues, you seeing budgets stay flat, go down, increase, and then how are you allocating those dollars? Like you said, across maybe people, process, technology. Like, what are some of the things you're looking at next year?
Yeah, I think hopefully other people feel this pain. I think in general in RevOps, we don't probably get the budget that we deserve as far as from a hiring perspective and or technology perspective. But I think it's always a constant like battle. And I think what's actually happened recently over the past 2 years is as again teams have reduced, but efficiency had to stay at the same amount or status quo and or increasing. We've actually seen a little bit more of an investment in revenue operations, I think. Whether it's again whether it's monetary or even I guess confidence in revenue operations, I think we've seen that has grown over the past 2 years. So I think for us, there is a bit more. We've stayed pretty static as far as our technology has been concerned in 2022. We are looking to bring on some additional technologies in 2023. We brought a lot in 2021. We wanted to make sure that we implemented those correctly and that we were able to pull as much as we could out of it. Maybe contrary to a lot of RevOps, I don't invest in technology quite a bit. I usually prefer, as you mentioned, people. We build a process. Once we've maximized that process and we are limited by that and lack of technology, then we'll bring in technology. So we've been able to do that pretty well in 2022. So for 2023, we're going to potentially bring in some larger tools, perhaps a customer success tool. We are going to integrate other tools as well with other parts of our tech stack in our organization. So I think I really do live by get the right people in place, build processes. Once you feel like you're coming close to, you've maximized that process, then start to invest in some technology.
Yeah, I kind of follow the same thought process in terms of do something manually first, right? Don't spend 2 hours trying to automate a 10-minute task, right? Not going to be the most efficient way to do it. And then bring in technology to help you scale, grow, maximize the efficiency.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Eyal, how's budget and kind of allocation of dollars, headcount, things like that looking for you and the revenue organization at DealHub for next year? Where are you looking to invest?
So we've been doing a lot of growing, and we're going to continue to do a lot of growing. So definitely putting a lot of investment in the people, but definitely putting in the tools behind that. I think on the CPQ side, we can save a little bit of money because we're using our own solution, but we've seen in other areas where we're looking at being more efficient, getting the better understanding, using the data. I think even Bruce talked about this earlier, understanding data, really analyzing, or maybe Saul, analyzing the data, making sure that we're doing the right things. People are being effective and efficient. So we're being smart about it. Looking at what the tools are going to help us really, not just taking tools for the sake of doing tools. We face that all the time. I know every time I try to sell something, it's like, hey, that's another tool you're trying to sell me. So we realize that, we know what people look at, and we do the same things ourselves. Though we look at what are the right tools, how are they going to be used, making sure that we understand them ahead of time. I think one thing that's really important, obviously, again, we are a CPQ vendor, so we understand the value of CPQ, but when you're looking at the solutions, I think what's really important to also is work with experts that understand how to use those tools. It's not enough to just go say, I need a tool. I know when we come in, we have a lot of experience doing it. We like to give a lot of value, a lot of best practices. And I think it's really important in any tool that you implement. So we use that ourselves when we're looking at new tools. We don't just, listen to everybody that calls us up and say, hey, how about this tool? We really want to understand how that's doing it to make sure we're spending our money properly. That's something I would recommend as well. And that's, how we're progressing those. So definitely putting in more tools as we add more people, but making sure we're putting the right ones in place.
Yep. Great. So we've got about 5 minutes left. Keep the keep the questions rolling in. We'll see what we get to in the last couple of minutes, and we'll obviously follow up afterwards too. But I guess the one thing I want to make sure that I hear from Saul, Eyal, and Bruce on is just one one kind of takeaway, or I guess one thing that our audience can take away in closing here as it relates to 2023 and kind of planning for their RevOps team, whether it's a specific OKR that you might have for next year, whether it's a specific project or initiative that kind of ties to one of those, kind of goals we talked about before, improving rep productivity, increasing win rate, whatever it might be? Like, what's one thing that you all are, focused on, maybe tactically that we could share with the audience here, and they could kind of consider, for themselves as they put their own plans together? Bruce, maybe we start with you. If there's, one thing that is specific for next year that you can share with the audience, what is it?
It's really about the processes and the technology, getting the right configurable rapid deployment technology out there that people know how to use, getting the processes right, and then analyzing all the data output from those processes to be able to get that feedback loop and fine tune the processes. So that is what we're really focused on, is just getting more and more efficient, getting the input right, reading the output, taking that output and changing the output, and just that constant feedback loop of just trying to get better and better with the input to the output.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, efficient processes help you scale, and then making sure teams don't forget about the output, the results, and how they can compare that back to their original plan or expectations, and then iterate from there. Don't forget about closing that loop and build that into your process, right? Makes sense. Eyal, what about you? What's one thing for next year that the crew can take away?
Well, I'm going to plug DealHub a little bit here. I apologize for all. I think it's important because people have to realize that CPQs today, you can get them implemented fast. Like I said, oftentimes we have ours implemented, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. That means before the end of the year, you can have a solution that means for 2023 to start the year off, for your sales kickoff that you have coming up at the beginning of 23 in January, February, you can have those efficient, effective solutions in place. So it's not something that you have to be looking at that all tools are going to take 6, 9, 12 months to go implement. You can have implemented solutions in 2 or 3 months. And that's a lot of what the finance team is looking at. Where are you spending your money? And I'm only going to have the value of it in 12 months from now. No, you could be spending the money, yes, now, but you're going to have that value very quickly. And that's something that you have to look at, is all the things that we've talked about. Hopefully 2023 is going to be a lot better than 2022 in some cases has been. But you have to plan for that, but you can plan for it now, and you can actually have that ready for the beginning of the year. So I think it's something people have to look at. There are ways to get value out of tools very quickly and have them ready for 2023.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, the thing that I'd take away from that is, if you're putting goals, objectives together for next year, don't default to saying, oh, our goal or objective for next year is to implement a CPQ solution by the time Q4 rolls around. But you can actually say, oh, hey, you know what? We're going to implement CPQ solution in Q4 of this year, and then we're going to deploy that and leverage that next year to help us improve our rep productivity, increase our ASP, improve our win rate. So it doesn't need to be a true
Exactly.
item that actually gets implemented next year. You can take action now and kind of reap those benefits.
Exactly.
And Saul, what about you? What's what's one specific thing for the audience here for next year?
Yeah, I'll try to go quick since I know we're running out of time. I think a couple things. First, when it comes to planning for 2023, I would say question and challenge everything, but don't try to be perfect, right? So you might get a top-down number you want to hit. As RevOps, we try to build a bottoms-up number, and we're going to meet somewhere in the middle. I think the other thing too, to help plan and prepare, we've spent the last couple weeks and also looking to Q4 to building our documentation or improving our documentation for our sales team, having a document library, whether it's workflows, et cetera. I think improving our documentation is always going to help the sales team and enable them. There's a lot of things that we change, throughout the year, and we want to make sure that we keep that documentation updated. It's not always the case. I know how busy it can get, but I think you spending the last couple months to improve that documentation is always going to be really helpful for the team.
That's great. And yeah, completely agree. And I think, with that, we kind of crossed on, or at least touched on, I think for what I look at as the 3 pillars of RevOps across people, process, and technology, and a bunch of different tool solutions that can help us, solve problems, accomplish goals for next year, documentation and how that can support, kind of process, and then hiring plans as well. So we are officially at the top of the hour. So first I want to thank you, panelists, Saul, Eyal, Bruce, thank you for joining us, for helping the crew, the audience here. as a note for anybody who's not already a member of RevOps Co-op, you can join our community for free at RevOpsCoop.com. If you want to learn anything more about DealHub, you can check out DealHub website, DealHub.io, and Eyal and the DealHub crew will obviously share recording from this session and some other information following the event. And then, like I said, RevOps Co-op will post this on our website, YouTube channel, and include it in our newsletter social as we kind of get the video edited. But with that, we will consider this a wrap. Again, thank you everybody for being here. Panelists, thank you for helping. And we will let everybody go. have a good rest of their Thursday morning, afternoon, evening, Friday evening, morning, whatever it is for y'all. So thank you all very much. Take care.